like I said, since this is for a presentation for our clients, I figured the best way to really make a direct impact is show them. I'm sure they've heard of it, but it never hurts to reiterate to them that they are making examples of companies now. HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act, was one of those that never really had teeth to it. At least that's what they said. Now, was it HHS or DHS? HHS. They're going after companies now and finding them. So it becomes important for those healthcare agencies to take note. We all heard about TJ Maxx. A mortgage company was fined $50,000 just for throwing out credit reports into a garbage bin. There's an actual law, disposal safeguards and privacy rule for the protection of credit reports. So they were fined. Heartland, we all heard about that one. That's the latest one. They were dropped by Visa for PCI violations. But the odd thing is that they were PCI compliant. So that begs the question then, are these truly the right thing to do to follow the standards? There was a report put out by Verizon Business last year. Over 500, I think they analyzed over 500 cases. The risk team goes out and they do incident investigations. So they identify, or they research 500 incidents. And this is the percentage of breaches affected, mostly payment card data. 84% of it, which tells you the criminals were going after credit card information. But how could that be? We have PCI. I'm sorry, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. Thank you, Gene. PCI was developed by the Payment Card Industry Council based off of Visa and MasterCard and Discover Cards safeguard rules. So there were I think there were four total. 3 or 4. There were 3 or 4 different rules to follow. So as a retailer, you're following a Visa safeguard rule, you're following MasterCard, you're following Discover, American Express, thank you. So you're following those. Well, they decided they needed a single rule, a single guideline. So the payment card industry was formed and developed this. But 84% of the breaches were payment card data. Yes, sir.
Do you know of those breaches?
Microphone. Thank you.
Of those breaches, are those failures to follow the standard, or are those cases where someone is following the standard and still has a breach? Or does the standard say if you're breached, you weren't following the standard?
They did not investigate if they were PCI compliant or not, but that's a good question. I know that they're coming out with a new report later I think next month actually, so it'd be interesting to see if they did address it in there. Yes, sir.
A lot of those breaches were insiders, and the PCI standard governs border security and doesn't do a very good job with insider threat. So many of them, like Heartland, some of Heartland's and some of the other ones, were insiders taking the information, and that isn't covered.
Yeah, I think I have that information in the slide down the road. I thought it was the next slide. I like to show this. Oh, I'm sorry.
As in the Heartland case in which our malware was installed on the Heartland's computers, right? In the Heartland's case, so I think they were PCI DSS compliant. So is there a problem with that PCI DSS standard, or what is happening? Is the standard imperfect? Because the company followed it, but then also they got attacked, and I think the transaction volume was around 100 million transactions per month or something. So a lot of credit card information got leaked. So if a company followed that and then also they got attacked, so what's the use of PCI DSS? So.
That's a very good question, and that's one that's being asked a lot now. But I think the problem is that the PCI compliance is at a point in time. So when they come in and conduct the audit, that day you're compliant. But if the following day you were to make a change to your systems or introduce a new system or a network configuration, you may be out of PCI compliance.
Isn't there a way in PCI DSS which actually take care of preventing some malware or some other stuff getting installed on a client's machine? I think there are some safeguards for that also. So that actually inherently points to the weakness in the PCI DSS standard. So it was not perfect. Nothing is perfect. So that's why malware actually came in the systems and it affected them.
Yes, and it's true. And it points back to it's about processes. The processes need to ensure that you're secure. If your processes aren't correct, then you're not secure. If you allow malicious software to be installed on your systems, we know there's multiple ways to mitigate that. Take away admin rights, put in a software application that monitors what's being installed. Like Bit9 is one of those. There's other ways. Lock down the keyboard, put it in a cement room, those kind of things. But yeah, it's true, and it's a big question that's being asked nowadays. Does it truly work? But that's the problem is there's no, for information security, there's no rules. There's no golden bullet for information security. We have to start somewhere. Exactly. There are minimums. Those are minimum requirements for us to maintain security within our environments. It's very difficult, especially in our environment, where we have to deal with so many different compliance regulations. They're all across the board. A lot of them, most of them, are really up to interpretations. Unfortunately, HIPAA, GLBA, and they're up to interpretations. They're really up to the auditors, in my mind. When the auditor comes in, it's whatever they think is right. Yes, sir.
So it was just a quick one. So essentially, PCI DSS is just a checkpoint, and there's no requirement to document the processes. Because I looked at it briefly, I didn't get that part.
It's about. Yeah, it's about, I want to say it's more about protecting the network. They talk a lot about, not protecting the network, sorry, protecting the credit card information. They focus a lot on the storage and the encryption and the transmission of that information. They do talk a little bit about change management of your processes, your firewall, for example. Make sure you have a change management process in place for changes to the firewall. And correct me if I'm missing something here, Gene, but I think their main focus is about the credit card information. So it kind of, again, it's those blinder kind of things, I think, that makes it difficult. They talk about segmenting the network. Well, the true purpose of segmenting the network for them, for PCI, is to reduce the scope of the audit. So when the auditors come in, they only have to focus on that section of the network of where that credit card information is being transmitted. So if you allow it to be transmitted throughout the entire organization, you're looking at a very long audit. If you can segment that off into a little section, it makes the audit a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and move on here. Some really great questions, though. Out on the black market, they sell your data. They sell your identity.